when you meditate, you're not using your five senses to perceive the world, and you get to activate other ways of perceiving the world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Food Matters podcast, your home for nutrition, health, and wellness education. My name is Laurentine. I am a filmmaker and a nutritionist and the founder of foodmatters.com, and I'm here to hold your hand on this journey to optimum health, transformation, and emotional healing. Hello, Food Matters family, friends. I hope we are all doing good, and welcome to another Food Matters podcast. Today, we are joined by one of my favorite friends and experts, John Gabriel, and we're talking about everything sustainable weight loss. Okay, so we're talking about visualization, we're talking about manifestation, we're talking about meditation, and we're looking at what types of ways and best techniques to lose weight in a sustainable way. So, hey, John, before we get started, I wanted to give you guys a little background on John, and I'll tell you a little bit more about his mission and how he's gotten started in his work. So, John Gabriel is a leading weight loss and visualization expert and the author and creator of the Gabriel Method. He has lost over 220 pounds in just 2 years with the help of visualization techniques, and now he helps thousands of people worldwide do the same. In this interview, we dive deeper into the reasons and the causes of why our body gains weight and stores fat, and the many mind-body techniques we can use to shift stubborn weight. So let's hit it off. Here we go. What causes our body to gain weight and store fat, John? Can you give us a little update on that?
Well, you can look at it at a lot of levels, and most people don't look at it at the highest level, which is the most important level to look at it, and that is that weight is created on our body for survival reasons, a form of survival. It helps us survive. It's used as a tool for survival. So at the highest level, what causes our body to gain weight is because our body does a calculation of everything that's going on in our world, and it decides that having more weight is the best way to keep us alive. What's interesting about that is in today's world, all of this programming that we inherited is irrelevant, but this programming kept us alive when we were living outdoors thousands of years ago. An example would be if you were living outdoors and there were tigers chasing you, then your body would want to be as thin as possible to survive because you need to be able to run away from predators. So if you started to gain weight, your body would do things to stop you from gaining weight, like make you less hungry, crave less fattening foods or foods that cause you to gain weight. When you start eating, you'd feel full quicker, your metabolism would speed up. Your body would do things to keep you at a lower weight because your body wants to be thin. Conversely, if you were living in a world outdoors thousands of years ago where nothing was chasing you, so you didn't have to run away from tigers, there was no predators, there was no risk, but at the same time, there was no food. Like, for example, a long winter where there's not much to eat. There's no fruit. There's no, all the animals are hibernating. What are you going to eat? And it's cold all the time. If you were living in that environment, your body would want to have extra weight to protect you. Sure, you wouldn't gain weight in that environment because you're not eating that much, but you're making your body want to gain weight. So at the highest level, you're creating you're exposing your body to a stress. The stress is the famine and the cold. Those are types of stresses. What we would call chronic low-grade stresses, as opposed to the acute stress of running away from a tiger, for example, which is if you don't run away from that stress in 30 seconds, you die. That's an acute stress. A famine is a chronic stress. You don't die in 30 seconds, but it's chronic low-grade. So those type of chronic low-grade stresses communicate to your body that you need to be fat in order to survive. So at the highest level, sure, we can talk about, eating sugar or eating junk food or all these little things, not getting sleep, all these little things can cause you to gain weight. But at the highest level, and this is what's important for sustainable weight loss, because you have to get your body to want to be thin. At the highest level, what causes our body to gain weight is that there's some sort of stresses in our environment that make our body think that we need to be fat in order to survive. That's and you need to understand that and address that. And when you do, you can not only lose weight, but you can keep it off. As opposed to a diet, for example, which doesn't address that stress. So when you take a diet, for example, where you like forcing yourself to eat less, you will lose weight in the short term, but you have not given your body a reason to want to be thin. You have not addressed the fact that your body thinks it needs to be fat, and you've given your body a reason to want to be fat because you've imposed an artificial famine.
Mm,
So the reason why people have so much trouble losing weight and keeping it off, everybody that's tried to lose weight has succeeded at some point. But in order to lose weight and keep it off, and for me, it's now 20 years, and I've had, my issues up and down from time to time. But I lost my weight when I was 40, and I'm 60 now, and I'm in the best shape of my life now. And the reason I've been able to be so successful for such a long time is I always focus on the things that get your body to want to be thin, as opposed to things that necessarily force your body to lose weight. The
right.
things that force your body to lose weight are not the things that get your body to want to be thin. And most of the time, they actually get your body to want to be fatter. And that's why they don't last in the long time. And that's why you see people yo-yoing for their whole life.
Right. So, but let's first of all, I mean, we need to be super grateful that we have a body that responds to these
Yeah.
type of.
You know what it's like? It's like having a Ferrari, where you don't know how to drive it, right? And you keep crashing into a tree and you blame the Ferrari. No,
Mm,
you have a Ferrari, you just don't know how to drive it. We don't know how, it doesn't come with an owner's manual. We're not given the instructions. We have our bodies are brilliant, and you keyed on that exactly. It's a plus, not a minus. It kept us alive. If our bodies weren't brilliantly able to adapt to our living environments thousands of years ago when we were living outdoors, we wouldn't have been able to
absolutely.
pass on our offspring. If our
Yeah.
bodies didn't have the ability to force us to gain weight when we needed to, or force us to be thin when we needed to, we wouldn't have
Mm.
survived and passed on our genes. So yeah, that's exact.
So that's actually a really beautiful way to see it as well. For those people that are struggling with health and weight issues, and they're looking at it, it's like, no, my body is not working for me, and this is not so good. And I'm looking in the mirror.
Yeah, it's sabotaging me. It's all this. It's like saying that your
Mm,
Ferrari's sabotaging you because it keeps crashing into a tree. It's not like, yeah, and I don't mean to sound insensitive, because I'm not, because it's very a humbling experience. Even for me, when I know everything, there was a period of time when I turned 55 where I started gaining weight again. And that was
mm,
very humbling for me because I was a weight loss guru. It's humbling, and it's frustrating, and you feel like there's something wrong with you and you're broken and all this. And that's not what the case is. The case is we just don't understand all the nuances of how. There's some miscommunication in the way your body's interpreting your environment that's causing you to want to hold on to weight. There's when we use the analogy of, like, if you were living outdoors and you were in a famine, that's a chronic low grade stress that would cause you to gain weight. Well, there's no famines now, but we might be in a nutritional famine because none of the food we have has the nutrients we need. We might be on a cellular famine because even though we're eating food, the nutrients are not getting into the cells of our body. We might be in chronic stress about how to make ends meet, feeling a scarcity of resources like money, not having enough. That scarcity feeling is the feeling you feel when you're in a famine. Our bodies also interpret that as a famine. So there's a lot of different things that our body's getting mixed signals and is trying to make sense of it. And it's very confusing for the body, but the body is eloquently designed to do what it's made to do, which is keep us alive and keep us at the right weight for our living environment. It's up to us to work with it. We got to meet it halfway. We got to understand how it works and meet it halfway. And I don't hear a lot of people talking about that. I hear a lot of people saying a lot of smart things about, how sugar causes problems, or junk food, or digestion issues, or sleep, not getting enough sun. I hear a lot of people talking about a lot of smart things that do make a difference and will make a difference. But I don't hear a lot of people talking about this, and that is that our bodies are eloquently designed to keep us at a certain weight, and we need to understand that and work with it to get our body to want to be thin, because that's the key. If you understand that and you get your body to want to be thin, you're not dieting anymore because your body wants to be thin. You're not counting calories anymore. You're not on a program, and it's very sustainable because it's what your body wants. So you gotta meet your body halfway in the communication process and say, yeah, this is a confusing world we live in. I know you don't understand it. I know you don't understand EMFs, and you don't understand junk food, and you don't understand the stress of making ends meet, or like a mortgage. You don't or a nuclear war or whatever stresses are out. You don't understand all that. Uh, and it's causing chemistry in our body, but let me communicate with you. And that's where the visualization comes in. It's the communication. Let me communicate with you and explain to you that no, none of that, we still need to be thin. That you're getting it wrong. And then when you have that communication, you can get your body to then want to be thin, and then you can keep the weight off. And that's really kind of like how that's the kind of the mind body connection that I think a lot of approaches are missing.
So before we go into the techniques of how to make our body
Yeah.
want to be thin, which is a fantastic
Yeah.
concept, by the way, thank you. Let's talk about the traditional approach of weight loss, which is counting the calories and cutting down on our calories and sometimes not even eating or trying to not eat until lunchtime. What does that do to our body and how much damage does that do?
Well, before I say anything, they're not all the same. Some are worse than others, some are better than others, some are founded on more legitimate chemistry than others. But at the end of the day, none of them really, almost none of them address the real issues of getting your body to want to be thin, and they can cause your body to go into a famine response, especially the low calorie ones where you're hungry most of the time, or you're fighting cravings most of the time. Your body can only interpret that as a famine. Like if you want to eat something and you can't, or you force yourself not to, then that's akin to not, as far as your body's concerned, you don't have it. It's not there. It's a famine. And then you end up going to war with your body. And we all know this at this point. The diets have such a miserable long-term success rate. They all have everybody can lose weight in the short term, but 5 years down the road, you're 5 times more likely to be heavy if you go on a diet 5 years down the road. And that's because you've just convinced your body that food is scarce. You're living in a scarcity mentality. It's the exact opposite of what you want to do in the long term. So they cause a lot of damage. That being said, there are certain things, like when you look at things like intermittent fasting, like you just mentioned, or paleo, keto, or things where you're not elevating your insulin levels, or where you're doing things to reverse insulin resistance, or where you're going longer times so that your insulin levels are low enough so you can burn fat again. Some of these things have more merit, I think, than the like just cutting out calories, low calorie approach. But they still, if you're not doing it right and you're still fighting cravings all the time, you're going to create a famine scarcity response that causes you to go to war with your body, and that's makes it impossible in the long term. It makes it very possible in the long term, but impossible in the long. I mean, very possible in the short term, but impossible in the long term.
So any of these type of advertised diets that you see, or any type of counting calories, or even these shakes and these, especially, those ones that you put like a protein shake in your water and you're like, okay, just drink that for your morning and then have another one at lunchtime and that's enough for the rest of the day. Those type of counting calories, that type of diets, is that what you're referring to?
It's not all one size. I don't want to group them all as one size fits all in that regard, because let's take the protein shake analogy, for example. You could look at those type of shake diets, and when you look at the ingredients, there's no real nutrients. It's just sugar and artificial sweeteners, and you're still staying nutritionally starved, and you're not healing your digestion. You're not getting nourished, and you're elevating your insulin levels, and yeah, those things are very, very damaging. But you can have shakes and super greens and things like that are incredibly good for you,
Mhm.
because they nourish your body when your digestion is impaired. They enable you to extract, they have nutrients that most food don't have. They extract the nutrients easier, they get into your cells easier, and then you're not nutritionally starved on a cellular level. So certain things work and certain things don't. And I can't group it all in one as like a one size fits all. But if you're just looking at from a calorie perspective and you're not paying attention to the nutrients, and some of the nuances of the chemistry, then yeah, that can be a very damaging approach.
Okay, so that really explains it quite well. And so let's go back to the mind body connection, like you were saying, and how
Yeah,
do we get our body to understand to want to be thin?
yeah. So you have to create an environment. If you look at the living environments that we were able to inhabit when we live outdoors or when we lived outdoors, some of them favor being as thin as possible, and some of them favor being as heavy as possible. So let's take some examples. So if you're living in an environment where it's warm all the time and there's delicious tropical healthy fruits, like a tropical paradise, like let's take a tropical island, okay, Vanuatu. Okay, let's just take a beautiful tropical island. So you got tropical fruit, which is full of healthy digestive enzymes and healthy digestive things, and then you've got and nutrients. You got animal proteins, you got plant seeds. Now you can eat all you want. There's just food is endless there, and it's healthy and available, and it's warm,
Mm.
right? So you don't need fat in that living environment. Let's even imagine that maybe there's some kind of predators that can chase you every once in a while. So you got to be fast so that you can outrun them every once in a while. So a couple of times a week you're sprinting for like 30 seconds, and it's a 30-second sprint. And this is something I've been talking about for 20 years. And there's a lot of now research to back it that there wasn't 20 years ago. I was just saying it theoretically, but like if you were being chased by a tiger, for example, you wouldn't go on a 40-minute cardio walk, right? You would go on, it's 10 seconds life or death sprint, right? So that's why I talked a lot about the importance of doing sprints as opposed to long, slow cardio. But if you were living in this island environment, you'd be sprinting every once in a while to stay alive. So you need to be thin for that. It's warm, so you don't need fat to keep you warm. And there's plenty of food. So in that living environment, having extra fat can be detrimental. You don't need it because there's plenty of food. And you need to be thin to run away from tigers. So that living environment favors being as thin as possible for survival reasons. If you were in that living environment, your body would want to be as thin as possible. In the opposite environment, when it's cold all the time and there's not enough food all the time and there's no predators and you're hungry all the time because there's barely anything to eat, you need extra fat will help you for the cold because it insulates you. And the extra fat will help you in the times when you can't find anything to eat. So you need fat to survive in those environments. Those are very different living environments. What you have to do is you have to mimic the first living environment, when in reality, most of us, in a weird sense, and stay with me, I'll explain, are living in the famine environment, and I'll explain why. Because in the famine environment, you're getting a lot of chronic low-grade stress. The chronic low-grade stress of being in a famine and being cold all the time, of being hungry all the time, being cold all the time, the chronic low-grade stresses. Now, in today's world, maybe there's plenty of food and we're not cold all the time, but we have lots of chronic low-grade stress. And the hormones that get elevated when we have chronic low-grade stress, they become chronically elevated. They're called pro-inflammatory cytokines. They cause us to gain weight. And they trick your body into thinking you need more weight in order to survive. And most of us are causing those hormones to be elevated in our body all the time through our thoughts and our feelings, through the fact that we're also nutritionally in a famine because the foods we have don't have the nutrients that we need, or because we have digestive problems that are causing stress and inflammation and hampering our ability to digest and extract nutrients. So all these different things are different variations of chronic low-grade stresses that cause the same elevation of the chronic low-grade hormones that cause us to gain weight. So we're chronically elevating the hormones that cause us to gain weight. What you want to do is you want to mimic the opposite environment. So in order to mimic the opposite environment, you need to eat, right? But you need to eat healthy foods. Healthy, live, real foods. You need to eat like you were living on an island. That's healthy, live, tropical fruits, animal proteins, nuts, seeds, meats, salads. You don't have to eat meat. By the way, you can be a vegetarian. Like, I don't want to get into that conversation per se right now. We can a little bit later. But the point is, you want to live like you're living on a tropical paradise. So you want to eat whenever you're hungry, lots of super healthy, digestible, real foods. Every once in a while, you want to sprint like crazy for 10 seconds. And this is where the visualize. There's two ways to do it. One is to visualize that you're being chased by a tiger. A lot of people don't like to do that because that's scary, and I get it. Or you can visualize that you're chasing some prey, like you running after the chicken or something, and you visualize you got to be real fast. Either way, you're creating an imaginary experience in your mind that your body takes to be real and thinks, well, we got to be thin because we got to catch the prey, or we got to be thin because we got to escape. Or you can just, while you're sprinting, visualize that you're in the best shape possible. Either way, you're communicating a message to your body, because that's how you communicate to your body, was through visualization, through symbols. Symbols are the universal language. When you don't speak someone's language, if you were got off the plane in China and you had to go to the bathroom, the way you know there was a bathroom is there's a picture of a man or a woman. You know there's a bathroom. You can't read that. You don't speak Chinese. So in the same way, our bodies, don't really speak English. They don't understand language. It's a different part of our brain, the survival brain. You can speak to it in pictures of running after a predator, a prey rather, pictures of trying to catch prey, or pictures of running away from a predator, or pictures of being in the best shape possible. These pictures communicate that the reason you're moving so fast, so quick, is that you need to be as thin as possible for whatever those reasons are, whether it's to catch prey or to run away from a predator. You're communicating and you use plenty of food. So now, and then you have to deal with the other stresses in your life, like the scarcity of not having enough, like worrying all the time about money, or that there's a war, or whatever thing. All these different things, you have to figure out a stress reduction approach, such as meditation, is what I'm sure we'll talk about. But you have to get to a place where you're not elevating those stress hormones all the time, and then you've recreated the environment of the tropical paradise that makes your body think, okay, we need to be as thin as possible. Whereas right now, you're not only have you recreated the famine world, but you're also going on a diet, which then further enforces to your body that you're on a famine. You're doing it all wrong. You're creating and recreating the wrong living environment and sending the wrong messages to the body, and the body's getting consequently the wrong hormonal messages. And that's why it's all going wrong. You have to recreate that living environment, and you have to think about it and understand, how am I going to do that? How am I going to apply that to my life and my world? And then you're moving in the right direction.
And what I love about this philosophy is what you're just saying, is that you don't actually have to starve your body. You don't have to have these cravings. You don't actually have to have these
Yeah, I'm going
when
even.
you're hungry, right?
Yeah, I'm going even further, Laurentina, is saying that works against you in the long term. It does. Like, I'm not going to deny that eating less in the short term in that day will cause you to lose weight in that day, but it works against you in the long term. It makes your body want to be fatter in the long term, and that's why you get the rebound effect. Otherwise, you wouldn't get the rebound effect. Otherwise, you go on a diet, you lose the weight, and then you never hear about it again. But that's not what happens, and everybody knows that's not what happens, and it doesn't. And it's the same for everybody, because you're violating your body's survival programs.
Yes.
And every time you do that, your body goes, oh, we need to be fat. Look, we're in a famine. We were already, all the fear and all the stress and all the worry was activating those chronic low-grade stress hormones, thinking that we're in a famine, or I don't know what, and then can't eat what we want. And now we're really in a famine, So like you're violating your body's survival programs. You have
But
to be sensitive.
let's just be a devil's advocate and like put
Yeah.
ourselves back into our body when we were overweight, let's say, and you were struggling with this. I mean, I remember friends of mine that would say, I could literally look at a donut and put on weight. So when you're
I was there. I
right,
was there. You lose. First of all, the first thing is you lose the ability to burn fat. And the reason you lose the ability to burn fat is because you develop insulin resistance, which causes your insulin levels to elevate. Now, for most people, for you, and now for me now, but not for me always, but for people that aren't struggling with weight, when you're done eating after a couple of hours, your insulin levels go down to next to nothing. And then when you need energy, your body burns fat. But when you have this chronic low-grade stress causing insulin resistance, your insulin levels stay elevated, even though you don't have any blood sugar. And this is the most important point, is that insulin stops your body from burning fat. So you still can't burn fat, even though your body needs the fat. You lose the ability to burn fat. It's horrible. It's humbling. It's debilitating. It's horrible on so many levels. And I know that, and I know this in so many, from firsthand experience. But the way to unwind it is you have to take a long-term approach.
yes.
If you try to go like, if you try to hit it straight on like that, you're just making the situation better. So the way to take a long-term approach is by
Right.
adding what's missing. So most of us, like you said, I could look at a donut and get and gain weight. Most of us, that's what we want all the time. It's just donuts. Now, all the donut is doing is elevating our sugar levels, elevating our insulin levels, and causing us to get fat. We need, there's 90 some minerals that we need. There's enzymes, there's vitamins, there's proteins, and even most of the time, most of those things that we need are not in the food that we eat that's processed. They're not in it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Even if they are in it, they've been corrupted somehow. Even if they weren't corrupted, we can't digest it. Even if we could digest it, once it goes through our cells, once it goes into our bloodstream, we can't get it into our cells. There's so many levels to us being starving on a nutritional level. That has to be undone.
Yeah.
So that's undone by adding super healthy foods in a super digestible form, healing your digestion. Another really big one for people that have weight issues is getting better sleep, because when you don't have enough sleep, you elevate your cortisol levels, which further elevates your insulin levels and causes you to gain weight. Plus, you're tired all the time and you're carrying all this extra weight. So when you're tired all the time, what do you want to do? You want to eat, So it's a horrible scenario. And
It's a cycle.
when you gain more than 50 or 100 pounds, you usually develop sleep apnea because the weight of your neck stops your sleeping. It cuts off your windpipe while you're trying to sleep, and you're doing this thing. And then when you develop sleep apnea, your sleep gets even worse. So you got to unwind that. For me, I had to get and most people that when they have weight issues, you have to get something like a CPAP machine, which is a mask that blows air into your nose and mouth. So for me personally, if I go back 20 years ago when I was 400 pounds, I had a CPAP machine, so I was able to get a better night's sleep. I was every day adding salads and super greens and smoothies and omega-3 capsules and digestive enzymes and probiotics and fermented foods. I was adding, but I was still craving junk food all the time, and I was eating it.
So just from a nutritional perspective, what did you go for? What did you grab when you started getting those cravings?
I let myself eat whatever I wanted. Okay, so I usually had chocolate almonds. As you know, I moved to Western Australia, which was 50 miles from anywhere. You know what I mean? So I once drove 60 miles just to go to McDonald's and back. That's what I did that day. So I still had cravings, but I usually had chocolate almonds that I kept in the fridge, and I would eat the chocolate almonds or some sort of chocolate bars or something. But what happened is I started craving them less and less. And your cravings really do change. That's an interesting thing, because what I craved back then, I don't crave anymore. What I liked back then, I don't like anymore. What I like now, I wouldn't have liked then. Cravings are it's all very relative. And so you can evolve. It evolves. And so even though I was still eating French fries and hamburgers and pizzas, I started eating less and less of that. And I started forgetting about it. And it wasn't through effort. It was just that it wasn't as appealing. I was able to elevate my blood sugar better. I had better night's sleep. I was nourishing my body better. All these things gave me more energy. So you're not craving the junk food anymore. So I was craving them less. And then eventually I had lost probably 100 pounds without even thinking about not eating any of these things. And then by that time I was like, hey, I think I can lose the rest of this weight. So that's when I started, exercising more and sprinting and lifting weights and really making an effort to add super healthy foods. And then
I love this concept. I love this concept because you're actually saying you ate more and you lost weight, right? So
I added more. I added more things, but the net result, if you add it up at the end of the day, like a year into my weight loss, how many calories I ate compared to before, it was less calories. But it's because I was less hungry.
Yes.
That my body didn't want the stuff, so that's working with your body. And that's taking a long-term approach. We all want an immediate approach. We want a pill, right. We want a drug, we want we want something that's going to happen overnight and we think that once it's done, it's done. But that's when the war starts. Once you've lost the weight, that's when the war starts. You haven't won the war then. That's when it starts. If you do it the wrong way, you know what I mean? So you're better off taking a long-term approach so that you can be 20 years down the road and be in better shape. You can only do that by taking a long-term approach of health and sustainability by focusing on really nourishing your body, healing your mind, healing the emotional aspects of your life, because those are humongous. For most people now, it's 20 years last 15 years I've been working and coaching and helping people that have serious weight issues. What I find, and this was my experience too, and I didn't know it until, I went through it, is that a lot of people have serious trauma in their life that causes them to gain weight. They actually feel safer with the extra weight. And I see
Mm-hmm.
this with women, with men and women, but specifically with women that have had any kind of abuse, sexual abuse, or been stalked or any type of attack, or they don't want to be noticed. They want to, it's like, and I remember talking to this lady even recently. She said something to me like, I was in a store and this really good looking guy walked in, and I was with my sister and she's like 40 pounds lighter, and she goes, and I felt safe because I thought, no, he's going to look at her, not me. And I thought, well, let's talk about that for a second, because whether that's true or not, there's millions of people out there that feel safe being looked at, right?
Wow.
And if you don't feel safe being looked at, which is apparent, that has to be addressed, because your body's, again, when you come back to your body using weight as a form of survival.
This is a subconscious mind
Yeah,
speaking to us that we may not even be aware of. And
most
that's a
people aren't aware of
program
this.
running
I,
without us even being aware of it.
I remember one of the first ladies I ever spoke to, when this was back in 2004. I lost the weight I was on Today Tonight in Australia. And I started getting a lot of people calling me. And this one lady calls me. She was in her late 30s, has had weight issues since she was 13. But here's the
Mm.
thing. From the time that she was 10 to 13, she had a babysitter that was abusing her. And it was a female babysitter. And the whole time she was being abused, she was gaining weight. And then when she was 13, her babysitter said to her something like, or maybe she was 12, I don't know, but her babysitter said to her something like, "Oh my God, you're so fat, you're gross," or something like that. She literally said that. And the thing is, she stopped abusing her.
Right.
Now, this lady was not able to lose weight because every time she lost weight, someone would say, "Oh my God, you look great."
And that's not what she
And it would feel
wanted.
threatening to her, right? So
Right.
I remember feeling threatened in my work environment. I grew up in a living environment that was very physically abusive. I used to
Mm.
fight with my brother all the time, and I used to fight with kids at school all the time, and it was really bad. It was violent compared to the way I see most kids. It was extremely violent, and
Yeah.
uh, and then when I was working on Wall Street years later, the my business partner was like a really violent type of guy, and I remember we never fought physically, but I always felt like we were about to. And
Mm.
he was 6'4". He was strong. He used to be a pitcher in college. He was almost a professional athlete, and and uh, and the whole time we were working together, I was gaining weight, and I remember thinking when I was 400 pounds that I wasn't afraid of him anymore, and I was afraid of him before that, just because of my childhood association of being beaten up so many times. So the weight actually served a purpose for me, and I had to work through that. And uh, and there are it does happen very frequently with women. There's a certain percentage, I think it's 25 to 30% of all women have had some sort of abuse in their life that's physical or sexual. And a lot of them translate. Some of them, they do it the exact opposite. They become anorexic and they want to be so thin they want to disappear. And
Mm.
that's a different response to the same stress. But a lot of people, they want to be so big that no one's going to buy, no one's going to be attracted to them. And we all
So,
have something like that, and everybody's different with this. So if that's it, I call that emotional obesity, which is different than emotional eating. Emotional eating is eating for emotional reasons, to soothe yourself. But emotional obesity is the need to have fat in order to feel safe. That has to be addressed too. And I had that, and I had to work through a lot of I did a lot of emotional work for that, a lot of visualization, a lot of hypnosis work. I did a lot of work for regression work for that. And I created different visualizations for people in
yeah,
that
that was going to
situation.
be my next question. So
Yeah.
for those that are dealing with these type
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Well, we do
traumatic
different things. So
experiences.
I did create a visualization called the Safe, Strong, and Protected Visualization. And in this visualization, you imagine a column of light around you. You imagine if you have a religious orientation, you imagine an angel, a guardian angel, wrapping their wings around you. All this, you imagine all this protection. Then you imagine you losing the weight, but still feeling this protection wherever you go.
Mm.
In whatever uncomfortable experience you're having in life, you visualize all that protection. People love that visualization, and there are people that listen to it all the time and have gotten tremendous success from it. We also do, meridian tapping for emotional trauma. The tapping. We created a
Mm-hmm.
documentary film called Tapping for Weight Loss with Carol Look, and that people really enjoy that. And then we do in our coaching, we do something called cellular release, which is a form of regression therapy. And, where you're talking to your higher self and saying, can we release the pain? Can we release the trauma? Can we feel safe? And can we let go? And, like you're in a deep state and you're working through this stuff. That's super powerful. And we have people that are trained in that we've been working with since, I was living in Noosa since I moved to Noosa, so 2012, and that's done really well. And that doesn't apply to everyone. What I'm talking about, this emotional thing, it's not a one size. That's the thing. It's not a one size fits all. And that's the other thing that diets always try to do. They try to pigeonhole you into one size fits all. You need 1,200 calories, or you need to only eat at 12 o'clock. It's just not that simple. What is simple is that you got to get your body to want to be thin. And right now, your body doesn't want to be thin. That's simple. But everything else after that is very unique. And you got to understand how to make that apply to your life.
And we're going to be putting some of these meditation and visualization
Yeah,
techniques
awesome.
in the show notes for you guys to be able to understand more and get deeper
Yeah,
involved.
if you want, I can
But
put a
for those,
link to, I can give you the Safe, Strong, and Protected visualization, our evening visualization, which people love. Also, the documentary film that we made, Tapping for Weight Loss. We haven't aired that in years. We made it back in 2013, but I can give you a link to that. Dr. Mercola, he aired that on his site for a week for free, like on his homepage. Yeah, so
so
it
good.
was a
And it's
great
so
film.
valuable.
So I can give you a link to that too if you want, for your listeners or for your viewers, and they can have a look at that and
We would
understand
love
that.
that. And we'll post in the show notes for you guys. And just continuing back on the mind body techniques that we can use to help to rebalance our
Yeah.
hormones, especially so that we don't go into the state of fight and flight with cortisol levels elevated. Can you just talk us through some of those
Yeah.
techniques?
Let me just make a subtle nuanced point about the fight or flight. The fight or flight is actually from a weight perspective, a good stress response to have once or twice a week for like 10 or 20 seconds. Where it breaks down is when it becomes chronic. And there's two different
Mhm.
types of stress responses. One is a chronic fight or flight, and the other is something called the chronic stress response network. And both of those, when things become chronic, that's when everything breaks down. Um, but the first thing is just doing any type of meditation rewires your brain and activates parts of your brain that make you feel safe and connected and intuitive and give you holistic thoughts and give you ideas of meaning and purpose. And they actually lower the cortisol and the other chronic hormones, chronic stress hormones and chronic inflammatory hormones. They lower them. Um, so that's one of the best things you can do from a mind body perspective is have a daily meditation practice. Now you can layer that because the visualizations we do are in a meditative state. So not only are you getting the benefit of just the hormonal benefit of the meditation, then you actually activate, visualizing your body being thin or visualizing yourself running away from a predator or running toward prey or visualizing yourself craving healthy foods, or just even visualizing the weight melting off of you, or visualizing yourself being safe and protected, whatever the issue is, we layer on the visualization to address those issues. And when you're in a deep meditative state, your mind becomes very programmable. You get into the alpha and theta state, which is the states that young children are in when they're really programmable, when we always say they're impressionable. They're impressionable because their brain wave states are in the alpha and the theta state. So when you get into that state, which our visualizations put you in, you become very programmable. So you can program in the love and desire for healthy foods, or program in the love for being physically active, the programming in that you feel safe, or the programming in that your body's just the fat is just melting off of you. You program it in because you're in a programming state. So that's why I even, years ago, I don't know if you remember, I wrote a book, Visualization for Weight Loss, with Hay House.
Mm,
And I was even on stage with Wayne Dyer in Brisbane. I don't know if you know this, like 2 days before he died, I was on stage with him.
whoa.
It was amazing. You know what? Wayne Dyer. So I met him. This was 2015. It was at the Hay House conference that they asked me to speak at. I remember he was speaking, and I remember thinking to myself, this man is like too big for his body. I don't know how, like, he just had this presence, and like I felt like, how can he even, like, he's just too big for a human body. And he died 2 days later, and I don't know what he
You
died
felt
from.
it. It exploded.
I just think he exploded, like he wasn't sick that I know of. He didn't seem sick, he seemed healthy as could be. So I don't know what happened to him, but yeah. So I wrote a book about it called Visualization for Weight Loss, which gives you all the different things that you can use visualization for. There's like 20 different ways you can use visualization plus sample visualizations. That's a Hay House book, um, that probably is available on Amazon or something. I don't know, but anyway, visualization and meditation are like visualization, meditation, and then the mind body techniques that we talked about for working through past emotional trauma. Those are the most important things to do. If you have a daily meditation practice, it could be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, doesn't matter. It'll build. But if you have a daily meditation practice and then you layer on top of it a visualization practice, breathing techniques are really good because they put you in a deep state really quick. The tapping's really good because it helps work through the emotional thing really quickly. So a perfect routine could be, doing like just 2 minutes of deep breathing, 5 or 10 minutes of meditation, a couple of minutes of visualization, a couple of minutes of tapping. You could get the whole thing done in 20 minutes if you did that on a daily basis. And the key is you want to do things on a daily basis. That's when it becomes powerful. Whatever the routine is, that would be a really good one to do to work through a lot of these issues. And then things kind of take on their life of their own when you're moving in the right direction. It's almost like you're setting the dials on the automatic pilot on a plane. Once you set the dials, the plane's going to go in that direction. You're now going in that direction when you do that.
And what is it what they say? It takes 21 days to change a habit
Yeah,
and to form a
yeah,
habit.
yeah,
So if that is something that we can get a hold and to understand how we can, and even for those that are really busy, even doing it in the shower,
yeah,
doing breath work in the shower,
yeah.
or while you're getting ready for the day, while you're putting your makeup on, just to remind ourselves, we can easily take ourselves out of the moment and put ourselves into a different state, like a state of theta, very quickly.
Yeah. The other thing, now that you mentioned the 21 days, is I can provide for your listeners that we created a free 21-day meditation for weight loss challenge, to create that habit, where we created 21 unique meditations geared toward for that layer on the visualizations for weight loss. Um, that are free. They're 10 minutes long. You listen to a different one each day. They've got some music behind them, and each one's focused on a different thing, like healing your digestion, nourishing your body better, getting better sleep, working through past trauma, working through mental stress or scarcity issues or financial issues. Like each one you just listen to, you get in your email an email with a link to a different meditation each day. So if you want to create the habit and you want to do that, I can provide a link to that too if you want. It's totally free to
That's
join.
beautiful.
You know,
And that's really beautiful for the doers out there, but then there's people that really want to understand more of the science
yeah,
behind it. So let's just, on the last couple of minutes that we have here, just jam on a little bit more about what happens to the body. And I sat with you in meditation a lot of times when I stayed over at your house, and
yeah. Oh yeah, we
we
had great
went deep.
meditations. Yeah,
Sometimes it wasn't just 20 minutes, like it
no,
went longer, and it was beautiful, and you really feel like the state around you, the state and the environment around you changes.
yeah, you
So for
do.
those that want to learn more about what happens in the brain and the mind body connection
Yeah.
when you go into this state, how would you explain that?
Well, the brain's a computer to me. Like really our bodies. I mean, if you look at DNA is like a binomial program. Like it's like a software. It's binomial, and we don't understand most of it. We call it junk DNA, but we also don't understand why like salmon go back swim upstream. Like or all these millions of things that animals do we don't understand. We call it instinct. But it's programming. We've got programming, and the computer is the most. I mean, the brain is the most brilliant computer, because of how programmable it is, how we can, and our ability to program it. And basically, anything you do, your brain's going to develop a habit to. If you do cocaine every day, you're going to develop a habit to cocaine. If you eat McDonald's every day, you can develop the habit to McDonald's. So like it's just programmed to grow in that direction, whatever direction you're going in. When you start meditating, you're activating parts of your brain that are at the highest level of the feelings of connectedness and love and peace, and this feeling like there's more to life than meets the eye. And that's an important
Mm.
point because we make this world up based on what we can see, hear, feel, and taste and touch. But we know also through experiments in chemistry, physics, and quantum physics and things like that, that the world's not exactly the way we see it. Like if you look at just the visual, what we can see is a visual spectrum of energy along the lines of the electromagnetic radiation spectrum. But if you go a little bit higher, you can't see it anymore, but it's still the same. It becomes ultraviolet. If you go a little bit lower, you can't see it anymore, but it still becomes infrared. But what we see is arbitrary. It's not, there's no light and not light. It's just how we're interpreting it. And it's the same with sound. We hear some sounds, but we don't hear others. We're making up the world based on our five senses, but there's a lot more to it. And when you meditate, you're not using your five senses to perceive the world, and you get to activate other ways of perceiving the world. If you look at indigenous cultures around the world, they'll all know from all over the country. They'll all meet at a certain time, place, and time. How did they, 1,000 years ago or 50,000 years ago, even? And how did they know to do that? They'll all meet. You look at it. You look at Australia. You look at that Aboriginal culture that has been around 50,000 years. Any time in the last 10, 20,000 years, people from all over the world would meet at the same place and time. How do they know to do that? They're activating other parts of their brain. And when you close your eyes and your ears, you're activating other parts of your brain. And that's what meditation does. And the parts of your brain that it activates are the parts that make you feel safe and loved and connected and give you intuition and guidance and understanding. And those are powerful because otherwise you feel very lost and confused in the world and scared. And when you activate those parts of you, you feel like someone's got your back. You feel like whether it's however you want to define it, a higher power, or whether you are the universe, or different people have different ways of conceptualizing it. But you really you don't feel the same kind of fear or panic or worry. You feel like there's more to life than meets the eye. You feel like there's someone's got your back. You feel connected. And you feel amazing physically. You just feel like you feel this bliss, and that's been documented many, many times. And then you become addicted to that. And the thing is, you're going to be addicted to something because you're going to be addicted to anything. No matter what you do, you're going to get addicted to it. So you might as well do things, and get addicted to really good things. And so, like, I was up from 3:30 this morning because I had stuff I had to do in the morning, before Leo went to school. So I'm not going to miss my meditation, And when you're, when you go, like you say, when you go in that other world, you don't want to leave. And so, like, I meditated several hours this morning, but I didn't do it because it was a chore or because it was an effort or even because it was good for me. I did it because it's the most enjoyable part of my life and my day, for the exact reasons that you say. You go into this other world and life takes on this whole other dimension. It takes on this whole other meaning, and it becomes really, really beautiful. And so that takes on a life of its own, but it does all start with, the daily practice. You got to, like, do it every day even if it's just for a couple of minutes. A couple of minutes will build to 5 minutes, we'll build to 10 minutes, we'll build to 20 minutes. Then you'll say, ooh, that feels really good. I don't want to leave. And then it becomes 30 minutes, then it becomes 40 minutes.
It's really true.
Eventually,
It's really true.
Eventually becomes the most enjoyable thing. And I have to say, it is the most enjoyable part of my life. It's the most
Oh,
meaningful. It's the time when I think is the most real because I feel like I'm connecting with the universe in the most real way.
mm,
But then the rest of my life becomes beautiful also. It kind of builds on
exactly. And
that.
it
It's like
becomes a reflection
you
of
know,
your daily.
yeah, you create a positive, beautiful vibration, and then your whole life becomes beautiful. And so I love all of my life for the most part now. I've never been happier, but I think it starts with that. That's where it comes from, and that's what I would attribute it to.
Gorgeous, gorgeous. Thank you so much, John. This has been such a wonderful interview. I love for you to share your wisdom. And I would love also for you to share your wisdom we're going to put them in the show notes, but all of the epic documentary films and meditations and
Okay.
visualizations that you've created over the years, we'll be making available for you guys. So thank you again. Thank you for this wonderful interview. Is there any
Yeah, my
more?
pleasure. And thank you, Laurentine, for everything you do. And I just, besides being one of my best friends, and I just love talk. We can talk, I know, for hours. And I just love your company. I love your mind, and I love everything that you've done in the world. And those, films have gone on to transform people's lives. And you guys are doing things on such a grand scale of transforming this world. And now, your connection with Gaia, like, I just think that that's such an incredible program, and I love it. And I can't wait for the next, whatever the thing is I watch, Cosmic Disclosure, whatever the thing is, like, I'm always on to see when it comes out next. And you guys, the work you guys are doing is amazing. And I'm grateful that you've included me. I really am.
Thank you so much for having this conversation with me, and continue your epic work in this world.
My pleasure. Thank you. And please do the same, because you guys are awesome.
So yes, thank you everyone for listening. I really enjoyed that talk. I hope you did too. And there will be more of these on the Food Matters podcast. So head to foodmatters.com and see you again.